What's up, everybody? Skim here. Welcome to my new podcast. This is called YAEP Insight. YAEP, aka Your Average Esports Podcast, is a podcast series I started about 2 years ago. I've been meaning to expand it for a long time now, doing more one-on-one kind of stuff where I just talk to people in this industry about pretty much anything. First episode launched already, so if you're clicking on this one, you're probably wanting to see the second one with Greg Laird, aka WhatIsHip from Chaos Esports. We've been friends for a long time. We have a lot of history together, either working together or at least shit talking together. So there's that. We've always been sort of keeping track of each other's work. I certainly have been following his work at Chaos now for a long time, and it was just long overdue to just catch up with him. And I think he has a lot of interesting insight into how he runs his organization, what motivates him to run that organization, and also sort of where Chaos is heading. If you're interested in the business side of esports, I believe this should be a very interesting podcast for you. So thanks for tuning in. If you ever have any feedback, be sure to leave it in the comments and enjoy. What's up,
Hello.
Greg? I don't know, how long has it actually been since we both talked? Like, actually talked.
Mm,
It
Probably
might have been just TI6.
yeah, it's been a long time. Probably TI is the last time that I really remember speaking with you a bunch, so
Yeah.
it's probably around there.
Or TI7. TI7 was the last one I've been to. Um, so yeah, it's been a long time, but I mean, we've both been busy. I guess you've been more busy than I have. I mean, you had to build like a
Hey,
whole
you
new
moved
company.
countries.
That's true, but you had to like build up basically a new company from the ground up. Kind of disappeared there for like it felt like you disappeared for like a year, and you just came back. You lost a shit ton of weight, and you suddenly had like this cool brand. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm happy for you. Obviously, Chaos you actually can't see it because obviously, my camera is not showing on Discord right now. I'm actually wearing the hoodie,
God bless.
the pink one. People seem to love it.
Dude, that thing is hot. Like, I had friends hit me up about those today and be like, "Hey, I really want one of those." And I went back and I looked at our shelves and we had one hoodie between extra small and medium. I was like,
Wow.
"Wow. Fuck."
It's been, I mean, I can imagine it's been something that crazy because I think it looks really dope. Let's just First off, it looks really dope. I mean, we've talked about this before in private, but I mean, I love your shit. All the merch that you guys do, I think it's awesome. And I mean, I guess that's sort of like been the goal of yours anyway, to like, do
For
shit that
sure.
people want to wear actually, right?
For sure. Yeah, so I don't know, so we did the whole rebrand and everything, and as a part of the rebrand we came up with a mission statement. And part of the mission statement is basically that we're making a brand that people can be proud to wear when they're away from their keyboard. So I'm a big clothing person. Since I lost a lot of weight, it's been a lot more interesting to me, more important and stuff. So when I took over the company, I didn't really want to wear the clothes. So if I was like, man, if I don't want to wear the clothes, then I'm surely no one else wants to wear the clothes because I'm in charge, right? So if I don't want to wear it, then I mean, maybe some people do. And the funny thing is, the nail in the coffin was I was driving with my dad, and he was talking. We just left a family function right after
Mm-hmm.
I'd taken this job and stuff. And he was like, "Yeah, your aunt and uncle, they really like the name. They think the digital is really clever." And I was like, "Fuck." All right, we'll be taking that out of the name because I had been thinking as soon as I knew this job was a pretty strong possibility. The brand had it has a history, one of the best parts of the brand is that it has a history. So
Right.
it felt really bad to, in a way, kind of throw that away. But I feel like with the way we did it, it's still decipherable as the same brand, and it feels very different for sure. But I think we did our best to kind of keep some kind of homage to the old brand there. And we used the orange. Now we've kind of switched to the green for a bit. We're going to be a lot more flexible with colors than most brands. I don't know. I feel like I get why people stay really true to the brand to their brands. I get Bleed Blue with EG and stuff, and I think over the longer term you can definitely build a brand identity around a color. But I think there's also a lot of interesting stuff to be done, and you can be a lot more flexible with your brand if you're willing to change it up every once in a while and try stuff out. And honestly, the feedback around the green logo has been really good, even though we haven't used it for very long. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of it certainly was a really weird process, and it was hard to like strike balance, and we went through kind of a few iterations, and we still actually use the stamp logo. That was like the first one that we
Right.
unveiled. The stamp. So the way that we kind of look at the brand now is the snake logo is, and like the crest, the circular crest. I mean, you might be able to tell you're European. It's modeled after like a soccer logo.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's modeled after a traditional sports
Feels
logo.
more like an actual crest, you know.
Yeah, so that really is supposed to be used like in coordination with our competitive teams. Anything like competitive related to chaos will use the full crest, the snake, and you know, it looks like a sports logo. And then we still have the stamp logo, which is what we use for like the chaos lifestyle channel as the logo. So anything in the future that's not as strictly competitive, or even I can tell you for sure there's going to be a lot of content that is not gaming related that we're going to be working on, that will live under like that logo and brand. So there will be a slight separation between them, and it'll also, you know, we really like the stamp logo just from like an aesthetics look for clothing and for stuff like that. And then we can like a lot of the new, we have that new bomber that has the stamp on the front, and the back
Right.
is like the big snake. So
Yeah.
we can kind of mix and match them too. So it's certainly been an interesting learning exercise, but you know, for us, like the end goal of this has been to create a brand that people can kind of has a broader appeal than, and it doesn't sort of look as much as a gamer brand. So that's sort of how we ended up here. And I think the old name and the old logo, I actually liked the old logo, like the stylizing of it. The
Yeah.
colors were just like
The color threw everybody
so
off. The
fucking
purple.
hard to work with. Like, and I actually like the colors in a vacuum, like the gold by itself and the purple by itself. But those two colors together is like, holy shit! Like the things that I'm thinking about is like, how in the world am I gonna make like a shoe
Right.
that looks good
Absolutely.
with those colors? Like, I can't imagine that in my head. So that in combination with sort of the naming scheme and stuff like that. And honestly, like the other thing is, you know, new management, new eventually new ownership. And I wanted to make it clear that there was almost, and to be honest, there was almost nothing left over when I took over the company. So I wanted to kind of show as a fresh start, and that it was a, you know, kind of a new direction for the team.
And I mean, you didn't mention, yeah, there was a history, but I mean, realistically speaking, that history wasn't
It's
that
like they
long
got
either,
second at
right?
TI. Yeah, I mean,
That's
they
pretty
got
much
second at TI.
that's pretty much just it.
They won ESL one, I think. That's
Yeah,
like pretty much it.
that's pretty much just it. It feels like, I mean, you know, we at Complexity also just went through a rebrand, and that was a big one, and you know that was difficult to sell to people, or just to fans, especially because there really is like 16 years of history or whatever, right? But no
Yeah.
disrespect to digital, or yeah, you know, to chaos or digital chaos at that time, but you know that like what 3 years
In comparison, yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Lake like built his brand off that red tie, you know.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. And people, you know, oh no, he's wearing a blue tie now, whatever. Now, um, did you have any like inspiration, direct inspiration when you looked at the like the circle logo one? Like, was there any club, was there any brand, was there anything that you looked towards and be like, it'd be cool to have something in that regard?
Not really. We actually like kind of started with so we always knew that we wanted to stylize the logo in kind of like a more traditional European soccer
Right.
style, partly because like at the time we were, well, we were still kind of owned, but at the time we were completely owned by like a British bank,
Right.
and the head of the board was also the UK national soccer chairman. So he was like the head of the UK national team. So it was kind of like neat because they got the rebrand. So when we explained it to them from the beginning, they kind of understood why we wanted to do it. And then the Ouroboros was like the first, like, well, not the first, but the first symbol that we really liked and like kind of latched onto from like a philosophical and like a meaning standpoint. So Ouroboros kind of has like a couple rough meanings, but the one that we're really attached to is, you know, it kind of shows the flow of life, and the flow of life is kind of very similar to the flow between chaos and order. So those are, you know, that's really how we came with the Ouroboros, and we built a lot of those kind of assets around there. And the logo is actually like a hand drawn logo that then we digitized from someone that our brand director actually knew. So it's kind of the story, I guess. The Ouroboros was the first thing we really latched onto, and we went through a lot of iterations of like what the snake might look like, and it was really hard to like make, because the big thing too is like a snake in gaming is actually not that unusual, right? So like we had a couple iterations of the logo that like I thought looked too much like the Splice logo, and like kind of like too much like a couple other logos. And I think like what
Right.
we ended up with is very visually distinct, and like pretty clean geometrically because it's just a nice circle. And we that's not at one point the snake was more on its side and still had like the C from the old DC, but it kind of like didn't. It wasn't sweet, super clean, so we just turned it into like a straight circle.
It's funny that you mentioned that
But we tried.
because it's funny that you mentioned that because we had Complexity literally the same thing. When we designed the star, we had like a variation where the star maybe looks like still like an old C, like a C,
Yeah,
you
like
know.
you can kind of see it.
Yeah, but it was like, oh come on, let's not force it for the sake of like forcing like that
Yeah,
sort of like.
and that was
you
pretty
know?
much how we felt about it. It's like it looks okay, but like this other logo definitely just looks
Yeah.
better, so we should just use the one that looks better.
No, I totally get that.
Yeah, so I don't know. And to your point, there was a history, but I didn't feel like we were like, eviscerating like a huge fan base, and that was the big thing. Is like at the time we didn't really have that many dedicated fans because like our teams had been so varied. Like if you think about the TI team, that was a European team. Then if you think about the team after that, it was Onyx, that was an NA team.
Right.
And then eventually Abed joined that team, so it became like a huge C influence on the fan base. And then he left and went back to Fnatic, so all those fans left. So like by the time I took the company over, like everything was kind of a mess and like it was kind of a shit show. So I was like, let's just wipe the slate clean here and start over with a brand that I actually like and like I know because a big part of it, right, is like this is a super small company at this point. There's like literally there were 3 employees for this company until February or March of this year.
Oh wow.
And like yeah, it's crazy, dude. Like we had no one. So it's like if I need to be so into this brand that I'm gonna champion it at every avenue, because if not, I'm never gonna be able to hire people that I want because they're not gonna think I'm like interested in the project or the brand. Like I need to be fully committed to this project to get buy-in from people and investors and people that I want to hire and everything. So I was like, I'm just gonna make it the way that I want it. So that was a big influence with like the stamp logo and how we started the redesign because I was just basically was pushing like we need to change it to something, otherwise like I don't think we're gonna have good success here. So it was kind of it's interesting. I mean, when you're like in the position where I am, and now especially where we're growing the company operationally, and like I'm quickly becoming more and more like the face of a brand and less of like an operational backbone of the brand. I'm really happy that we like went through the steps to make sure that like we love the brand. The employees that worked there at that time, we love the brand, and it's really important because it gives us so much buy-in and so many other ventures.
No, for sure. When you started this whole venture, also like redesigning it and then trying to find like a purpose for this company, did you have any? And I'm asking this because I think I have an answer in mind, but did you have any other orgs in mind where you thought, hey, I kind of want to model chaos the way this company has been run, or not necessarily trying to like imitate them, but more so like taking elements of like certain other esports organizations in this space.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 2 orgs that we pretty much look at for kind of like different reasons are FaZe and 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves, I think, is especially in the last like month and a half, has basically become the gold standard for all
Everything.
things, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like literally just everything. Like their merch is the best by far. I mean, I don't think they make their own merch. I think they have someone that makes it and then they sell it. Like they hire a company basically to design it and stuff. That's fine. I mean, it's their merchandise. I'm sure they have a huge influence on, the overall apparel. But
right.
their video content is also like fucking unbelievable now, especially since they did the Courage video, Courage joining. Like their video content has been incredible. Their new media is really good as well. The new Nade Shop podcast is really cool. The group show is not my thing as much, but people seem to really like it. And I mean, I think they're competitively, I think they tell a decent story. I'm more interested in, and the reason I bring FaZe up as well is I think the content that FaZe does is extremely interesting. Like the subject matter, not all of it. A lot of it is kind of like a little less effort, but some of the videos that they really and ideas that they put a lot of effort into, I think are really cool just from like a general YouTube video aspect. Like I'm a huge YouTube consumer. It's probably my biggest platform right now. Like I used to be a huge Twitch consumer. Now, honestly, I watch way more YouTube. Whether it's like I watch a ton of car YouTubers, probably unsurprisingly. I watch like David Dobrik, like people like that. So for me, I like that part of FaZe. I like the kind of content that they do and the type of content they push their streamers to do. To a point, to a limit. I think some combination of like 100 Thieves and FaZe is kind of like where we really want to be in the long run. But obviously, that's a either a very long or very expensive road. So um, it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of both, and also a little bit of magic too. I mean, at the end of the day, like for any team, I think the hardest thing is like acquiring really high quality fans, like super fans and people that really love your brand no matter what. But it to me at least, it seems like the fastest way to get there is almost always by winning. Like if your team wins, your social engagement and social growth is just unreal. So they're also doing that well now too. I mean, their league team was not very good for a little bit. Now they're very good again. Their Call of Duty team's really good as well. So really top quality org, and it seems like organizationally everything must be great there. Like they must have really great executives there because it seems like everything runs so smooth.
Right.
Stuff gets delayed occasionally, but like their clothing drops have been really good, despite being limited. But like when you do clothing like that, it's like you have to make the order size like 3 months ahead of time, 4 months
Right.
ahead of time probably. So it's like you're throwing a dartboard at a wall. So yeah, but I think 100th even phase are definitely more where we look, and that's not to take anything away at all to like more traditional orgs, but what I phrase is like more traditional orgs, Team Liquid, Cloud9, really well run orgs. I think like when you just look at the content that they're putting out, it doesn't really line up with what I want to watch personally, so it's not what my company is going to put out.
But that's kind of what's cool about esports in general, though. The fact that there's
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I mean,
vastly
that's
different
like the whole
companies,
thing,
right?
right? Like, if you just want to watch like a really high quality team, you want to know all about the players competitively. You want to like dive very deep into that side, and as the other great thing about like teams like Cloud9 and Team Liquid is they have top teams in every game. Like, it's easy to be a fan of them. That's a huge thing for a lot of people. It's like I can just pick one team and they can be my team in every game. And most orgs don't really have the firepower or money to really
Right.
compete in every game like some of those orgs do.
Right. I guess speaking about competition, then I mean, you guys, and how many games are you actually in? I know you have
So
obviously
we
a
have
Dota team. You have
we have
Rainbow Six
Dota, we have
Siege,
Rainbow Six, we have Counter Strike, and then we have Battle Royale.
Battle Royale, right? Um, I mean, your Rainbow Six Siege team is actually pretty dope. I gotta say.
Yeah, they're really good. They've last season was like kind of tough for them. They started out really strong. They had like a bad week, and then the standings ended up really screwy, so they ended up in this like really wild tie. But they were in second place at one point, like late in the season. This season they already beat G2, and I mean G2 lost their other game that week as well, so maybe G2 is a little on the decline, but I think they're very quickly kind of establishing themselves as like top 4 in Europe, which it's only top half, but Europe is so fucking competitive in
No,
that
of
game
course,
that it's
yeah.
like it's very good, and it sucks for us because it's like if you just transplanted that team into another region, they'd have a very good shot at being top 2 like every season. But especially with how they're playing right now, and the other thing is they've definitely improved a lot. But yeah, Europe is just such a competitive region; it can be tough. I mean, Empire is like so fucking good. It's unreal how good that team is in that game.
You mentioned that they're in Europe, and your Dota team is also currently in Europe. Is that I guess, does it matter to you where your teams are? Are you focused or
Uh,
trying to pick up more NA teams?
it is definitely a like even a short term focus to bring more rosters to NA. But for Dota especially, we're not really willing to sacrifice the competitiveness of our team for the
Right.
region. And the other thing about Dota, which people have slowly figured out, is that the
Well,
European region is going to be much easier this year because all the good teams have qualified. And that was the decision we made 2 months ago. When we were looking at the DPC points list, it was like it's very likely that we will probably have to play the European qualifiers against Final Tribe and Alliance. And like there won't really be many other good teams in the European qualifiers. And now it looks like even Alliance might qualify.
right.
So that was why one of the big reasons we moved the team to Europe, and was just we thought the region was going to be better, and to be honest, the South American like roster kind of like fell apart. That roster it's really tough because they've been playing together for so long, and like they did reach better. I think they did get slightly better achievements occasionally when they started playing under our roster and with Misery in that later year, but like the Paris that team was actually doing really well in scrims, very well mentally, and then the Paris major like broke that team. Like they lost to Pain, and like it can be so hard to save a roster like that if it's already kind of been through that,
Right.
and then it happens again, and there's only so much you can do, you know. So at that point, when we looked at our options, I was like, well, Europe looks like it's gonna be pretty easy, so pick up some European players, and you know, Misery is happy to be back in Europe too, so you know, that's kind of how that happened. And the Weehaw thing, I'm not really sure. I'm not really allowed to talk too much about it, but we had retained his contract. He basically, for a bunch of reasons, wasn't a great fit for the competitive roster anymore. Nothing like that happened or anything like that.
Right.
It's just, you know, his play style and what the team wanted weren't really lining up. So he decided that he'd rather just not play. So we said, okay, that's fine. And we actually switched him to like a more kind of like streaming incentivized contract. And then it turned out that he had a really good opportunity. So that was kind of a complicated process. It took a really long time. And then in the end, we ended up basically swapping Weehaw from Atomic Man with Liquid. So that kind of worked out. It took us a while to get to that point. But it, you know, that is a kind of situation as well where like no owner ever is going to like stop their player from like playing with Team Liquid, you know, regardless of the state of their contract.
Of course.
You know?
Of
Like,
course.
if you ever want to have a team in Dota again, then you need to let them go play. So like he was going to go play. It's just, you know, getting there logistically is complicated. Yeah, so kind of a long road to like get to where we were, but honestly, I'm extremely happy with our Dota roster. I think that they have a very good opportunity to qualify for TI, and you know, at the end of the day, unfortunately, with the current state of the Dota circuit, TI is basically all that matters. So
It really is.
that's kind of where we're at, and I think, you know, we have a decent shot at it.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, your roster looks pretty strong. It's difficult to call because it feels like
Yeah.
in these qualifiers anything can happen. You know, there could be
Yeah,
like
anything can
another OG
happen, you
run from
know.
last year.
Anything can happen, but I think, you know, the team feels to me, it feels like that TI team. Like it's like Misery basically just selected, you know, like VT Faded is not someone most people thought were going to be
Right.
added to our roster.
How
But you know,
did you find him? How did you guys find this particular player?
he was kind of like known for a while. There's kind of a few players that are floating around that have been known as really, really talented pub stars. Nine actually is a great example. Like Nine has almost been on like 5 or 6 teams that like,
Right.
you know, the general Dota community would know. But it just hasn't quite scraped by. And VT Faded, I think, is kind of in that same situation for C. But he's super, like, unbelievably good mechanically, and it's kind of a long story. But we were going to get a coach from Southeast Asia, and it didn't work out. But he like really wholeheartedly endorsed VT Faded, so we basically just continued, and Misery really liked working with him, and all the players really like him. So
Cool.
he seems really easy to work with, which is like in a Dota player not a super common trait.
It really isn't. No.
So for like, you know, and I think, you know, for us, we're really trying to build an you know, like a Dota team in the longer term. You know, like having our Dota team turn over 3 out of 5 players like every 6 months is not productive for anyone. It's not productive for management. It's not productive for the players, and it's really hard for them to shake the mindset sometimes that that's like what they need to do. So, you know, us finding players that in the long term kind of fit with our philosophy is really important to us. And, you know, another good example of like a player that I hope we can work with again very soon is HFN. We ended on extremely good terms with him. Basically, there was a combination of things, but it was kind of part of that SA falling apart, and
Right.
he for a while was going to play with the team, but he was really unhappy like staying in Europe. And, you know, if your player is just like super unhappy with the situation, then it's never really going to work out. And he really wanted to play in South America for the TI qualifiers. So, you know, it ended up kind of just being like a mutual parting ways. And on it, but like I personally think he's one of the best carry players in the world, and it like broke my heart to not have him on our team. Honestly, like I really like him, and I think he really likes us and really likes our brand. It's funny, like on Instagram, I still see him wearing our clothes all the time. But you know, so that's like another good example. You know, sometimes it sucks with Dota. You know, sometimes like the solution is like not a solution. It's just like the least shitty option. So I'm sure anyone who's ever tried to like field the Dota roster knows exactly what I'm talking about. But
When you took over Chaos, was it always a goal of yours to have a Dota team? Because I mean obviously Dota is sort of like where you came from, right? But
for sure, yeah.
it,
I mean, I can't imagine not having a Dota team.
yeah.
Really, I mean, we didn't have one for like a little while, but that was kind of just a victim of circumstance. Like we had an Animal Planet team, and I've never seen a team implode so violently and aggressively quickly as that team. That was like truly unbelievable. Um, and then at that point, it was just like I can't handle this right now. And like financially, actually, for a time, Dota was like kind of a stretch, and we didn't want to just like waste money on a shitty team. So, um, yeah, so we just didn't have one for a while. But then we kind of knew like we didn't really help the paying players like get out of their contracts with pain or anything, but we hooked them up with some like good lawyers and legal advice and made sure that they like had a fair shot at like having a life because like their contracts before were not fair, to put it lightly. So those contracts were eventually like dismissed by basically like I don't even know what it's called. It's
But just
basically
some,
like
yeah.
it's basically like the work board of Brazil or something. So that was how we ended up with that team. And obviously, like well, maybe not obviously, but I personally had a really close relationship with Misery for a long time. So for me, for him and me, it was pretty natural to just link up and just get the team running under a new banner and you know funded properly and given boot camps and stuff like that.
Cool. I mean, hey, I think I don't know. I'm always glad when people that truly know Dota and truly care about Dota always come back into the scene, and you care about the scene, you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I don't know how you would operate in Dota if you weren't like a person like me or Pandago or general manager. Like,
Right.
if you're not like born and bred in Dota, I feel like the opportunity to get like absolutely just wrecked is like it's actually absurdly high. Like, it's so hard to navigate Dota. I understand why so many orgs do not have Dota teams, and it's really unfortunate because it's one of the many symptoms of our kind of like half-baked tournament format, or competitive format, whatever you want to call it, esports circuit. I mean, it's really rough to operate in this game as an owner, and like the other thing is like contracts are not unenforceable, but they're almost unenforceable. So it's just rough.
As you mentioned before, if a player wants to leave, you kind of have to leave. You kind of have to
I
let
mean,
them
it's like,
go.
what are you gonna? I mean, you can bench them and stuff, but like in the long term, you're only gonna really like harbor hate, and it's just a tough situation to be in, And we are trying to, personally at least, I'm very interested in like moving the Dota scene forward to a point where like contracts are at least semi-stable, and teams can sign on for a year and actually make it through the contract without having a freaking like 4-player implosion, But it seems very difficult. Almost every team has the same problem. But slowly, I think we're getting there. It's really find players that philosophy and want to work with you in the long term. So Misery is on a longer contract than is traditional in Dota, and we kind of plan on working with him in the longer term to try to more of a legacy team. And from a brand point of view, working with him was a no-brainer too, because he was the captain that led that team before, and it just kind of made sense.
Yeah, bring back the history again.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about a little bit more Chaos as an org. Why'd you guys choose Atlanta of all places to settle down?
So our old backing company was basically like it was a British bank essentially. Like I said, it was like private equity arm of British
Right.
bank called LDC. It's like Lloyd's Bank's private equity arm. They're based in England. We were at the time we were their only investment outside the. We were their only esports investment. We were definitely one of their smallest investments based on like the other companies that they held. Um, and they just wanted it to be a bit easier to like communicate with us. And basically, like when I took over at DC, there was kind of it was like a second wind basically that was already kind of moving along.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was new funding that was getting lined up for another year. They were hiring some accountants in Atlanta to like help out with finances and sort of month to month bookkeeping. And Atlanta was also at the time the hub of our title sponsor. And then also living in Atlanta, like economically, it's cheap to live here. We have fiber internet. The airport is really good. Their flights, it's a Delta hub. The airport is like 15 minutes away from downtown. There's not really traffic there, and like, well, there's traffic in Atlanta, but not to get to the airport. So it kind of just made sense as like an esports operating city, and we don't have any franchise teams, and it is not really still in our immediate forecast to really get a franchise team. It doesn't really fit the way that our business model works. So it's kind of a nice city, and honestly, if I had to do it again, I'd move here again. So and it was kind of the plan for them to move here, and then I basically signed on as the CEO, and I was like, well, I don't really have a good reason to stop this. I mean, I looked at LA.
That's true.
Then I looked at the prices of LA, and I was like, everything's twice as expensive. You have to pay the employees 40% more. They don't actually get any of that money. It just goes into taxes and rent. So it's not like you're providing a better quality of life for your employees. But here, I can pay someone like, way less what I would pay them in LA, and they can, have a 1-bedroom apartment and at least live fairly comfortably, and it's not, it's not as insane as California. So, just combo reasons, but that's sort of it was basically the short answer is it was the plan, and I didn't have a good reason to stop it.
Makes sense. How long have you lived there now? 4 years? 3 years?
I moved here. I think it's been about a year and 6 months.
Really?
Actually, yeah. So I moved here January 3rd of 2018, and I took over this as CEO of DC on like December 20th of 2017, so like 10 days before that. Right. But before that, the team was in Arizona, and I actually was living in Scottsdale as well at the time. That was sort of like after I left BTS, and I did some like contracting with like Immortals and some other companies. And then I moved to Scottsdale just because I honestly wanted to get the hell out of LA, and then I moved here after that. So
it's pretty dope. Are you still in contact? I mean, you guys are friends, right? You and Shannon?
Yeah, we're friendly. I mean, we don't really talk super often, but I I had to ask him actually. I don't even want to say this because I don't know if we've actually changed the password yet. But I had to get one of the DC accounts from him, and the password was extremely Shannon. We'll put it that way. It was not very complicated and involved words. I'm pretty sure we've changed it since then. So I
hope you did.
If not, I hope whatever staff member's watching that's the password on that account right now.
That's hilarious.
It was so funny. Yeah, I mean we're friends. He actually was basically a company before I even was involved. But we were friends. Like me and Shannon have been friends forever. So this did not change that. Me and him were I was not involved in him leaving like that, so it's kind of unrelated.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you're not the public facing part of or that you're more taking on more of a public facing part of the company, with the vlogs and just in general. Does that mean we're getting a Chaos podcast at some point? Because people have been itching for some Greg Live,
Well, I think like the real Live on 3 is coming back, I guess, but like the real esports podcast has gone unfilled since like State of the Game, dude. Like, and since we did those like few episodes of Greg Live, like people used to be in those things so fucking hard. Problem now is like if I host a show like that with Charlie and LD, we'd all get fired.
That's true.
So
or at the very least you lose like a couple of contracts.
Yeah, like it'll be bad, something bad will happen. So striking a balance there is important, but like obviously one thing I've been doing a ton more is vlogging on the lifestyle channel. I'll basically have like a video coming out every single week on that channel, which is basically just like my life. Which last few weeks I haven't filmed as much because I had surgery a few weeks ago and stuff like that, but we kind of have a backlog of content from before that. So this week my video is coming out from when I went to do a track day a few weeks ago. I do a 360 going 100, so it's exciting. I guess by the time people are watching this, it'll probably already be out. Not on purpose, mind you, but I did a full going 100, so that was cool. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what I mean too when I say like non-gaming. There's going to be a ton of shit on that channel about my car and like doing stuff like in that car with other people and players and sponsors, and hope our goal obviously in the long term is we want to get like auto sponsorship. That's a great category for esports, so I'm trying to like build the foundation there. And I have a huge passion for cars too, so it's like easy for me to do content like that is not work at all. So
it's just actually just taking a camera to whatever
you're
already doing anyway.
The point of camera.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do all that shit anyways, so might as well just film it.
What are your plans for your esports side of content then, though? I mean, I'm just assuming that you will
Yeah,
have
so
esports
there's
content,
still,
right?
oh yeah, for sure. There's still gonna be a lot of content around the competitive teams. I think like the form of the content is gonna be still more lifestyle-y, more vloggy, more like more like you're used to seeing on YouTube. Not esports YouTube, just like YouTube.
Regular YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, regular YouTube. But the competitive channel will house like the content actually about our team. So like the next 3 weeks are going to be player profiles about our battle royale team. After that, we have like a bunch of like random skits from when our Rainbow Six team was boot camping here. So like there will be content on that channel, and it will center around the competitive teams basically. And then the lifestyle channel will have content from staff members, from collaborations with investors and other business partners, and the players will also be on that channel, but the content on the channel will be basically just non-gaming related at all.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Like I said earlier, and I mean, I agree with you. I think it's kind of weird how a lot of esports teams have their own YouTube channel, but the content that they do isn't actually meant for YouTube, or isn't actually really
It's
built
like
for YouTube.
Well, it's like, do you want to compete with Reddit? Because that's like what half of video content.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's like match highlights and like crap like that is like no one's gonna like unless you have a huge YouTube channel already. People aren't gonna watch that stuff. It's not gonna grow your channel. So if you have an existing audience, it can be fine to like supplement minutes and stuff. But for us, that's not the goal. For us to grow. So we have a much different strategy than like a team like Team Liquid, where they already have 100,000 fans that are watching the content week in week out. Those and at that point, if only 10% of them are interested, that's 10,000 views. But for us, we still have such a small audience on YouTube that like it kind of just doesn't make sense to try to do content like that. It tries, so for us, we're trying to take a different avenue to make content that's like more long lasting, that has potential to go viral, that, we can get some growth out of, basically.
How many people do you have working on the content side of things? I know you're still hiring, but right now.
Yeah, so we now are up to basically like, there's really like 3 people that basically work only on content and stuff like that. We have a videographer, a video editor, and a brand director who kind of does more stuff than just content, but it's a big part of it.
Right.
And we also have a sales director that we just hired who, honestly, for the first like month is basically going to be on the content team, because he's basically like defining his own sales inventory. So having him as being a big part of the conversation and what the video content looks like is going to be very important to us.
As somebody, sorry to interject, but as somebody that has done sales before for several companies, how difficult was it to find somebody that was going to satisfy you as sales director?
It was both very hard and not hard at all. Mostly because I met Nick Lupo, so he's our new sales director,
right,
at the Boston Major.
Oh,
and the Boston Counter-Strike.
Oh, okay.
One that Cloud9 won, and it's really weird that me and him had never known each other, because a lot of mutual friends, like really good mutual friends from esports, and I've never like connected with someone as quickly as him. Like our first conversation was basically like, "So you hate everyone in esports?" And he's like, "Yeah, I hate everyone in esports too." And I was like, "We're gonna be best fucking friends." And like it was basically like very quickly we kind of figured out like that we wanted to work together in some capacity. And his role at Twitch, he was basically doing content acquisition and working with the creative department to sell like advertising, like to sell activations and stuff. So he was a pretty natural choice to bring into a sales role, and he's very interested in like building cool activations with other companies. So he was actually like, we interviewed a lot of other people, but for me, like he was someone that I really wanted to hire. So that particular role, we got really lucky. Like I found someone that was basically like, I want to hire this person, and then I basically just waited until I had a good job that like fit.
Right.
So, and that's kind of happened. Like I don't know. I mean, it's really funny. Like you read all these books about like starting a company and stuff, and it's like the advice is like just hire the coolest people you know. But like literally, like that's what I've done. I hire the coolest people I know for every job. And I think so far it's worked out very well. But now we're kind of reaching a point where like we need help like organizationally. Like we need assistance in like scaling processes and like being more efficient as business. So now we're gonna have to really start going outside of like the comfort area, and like we're hiring a COO right now. That I'm obviously extremely involved in, but a huge part of it is our investors. Really looking through their network to find someone who's experienced in building a business. Someone actually kind of like Nicole at EG is like a good example of kind of like, you know, she's actually taking the CEO role. Phil has the COO role, but
Right.
For all intents and purposes, they're mostly interchangeable for like what she's doing. Like she's there
Very
to
true.
help implement. She's there to help implement efficient processes and help build the business. And that's kind of like we need a couple people like that now too. Now that we're kind of at like 8, 9, 10, you know, like we need people that know how to fill holes, know how to hire efficiently. Like hiring is a whole monster. If you've never tried to do it, I encourage you to try and be a part of it at some point because it's something else.
It's a lot of work. The kind of applications you get and you have to weed through. It's interesting.
And like even once you're past that part, you know, and you're like trying to decide, because sometimes you have like 3 like truly great candidates. Man, I wish I could like try these people out for like a month each, but you can't do that. Right. So you know, it can be hard. So yeah.
How big do you envision Chaos to be towards the end of this year in terms of like, you know, employee size or employee count? Yeah.
I think by the end of this year we'll probably be somewhere around 15.
What was that? 15?
15, yeah.
Oh, 15. All right.
Yeah. We have also we have 8 full time that one of them is still Nick is still moving, like in progress of moving, but we have sort of 8 full time that are in the office right now. Besides, he's supposed to be here, but he's not here yet. Then we have 1 full time remote person. That's our social media person. But 15 is actually low. That's the conservative estimate. We all should probably have 15 in like a month. I say that now. I say 15 at the end of the year now. It's probably really like in a month and a half or 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have
it's probably more like
7 job listings right now out at the moment.
Yeah, it's probably more like 20 or I don't know. When you think about it that way, it gets scary. I try not to think about it that way. Think about it per department.
What other titles do you have sort of like eyed out or, you know, marked down as like
game titles?
Would be kind of cool to be in, you know?
I'm actually still like I'm casually interested in League of Legends. I just think that we're not going to find an entry point that we're happy with financially. I'm actually very interested in the Call of Duty League much more than I was in the Overwatch League. Although again, I do not know. There are actually other opportunities than people kind of think to manage some of those teams, but I think it's unlikely that we'll end up in a position to manage one of those franchises, but I'm very interested in it. I think that Call of Duty, to me, has more staying power than Overwatch, so I kind of believe in it in a more longer term than Overwatch League. My big problem with Overwatch League is like, I don't believe people are going to be playing Overwatch in 5 years. So building like a franchise league where you pay a ton of money to buy in doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's going to exist in 5 years, you know.
And Call of Duty already has sort of like stood the test
of
time.
Call of Duty, yeah, I mean, Call of Duty's not going away. You know, it's
really not.
It's Call of Duty.
The fan base is insane.
And that's actually it's the same way I feel about FIFA and like all the sport games. You know, I had a conversation with one of my old bosses, and he was like, "What do you think is going to be around in 10 years? Overwatch League or soccer?" Okay, you have a good point.
Very good point. Yeah. No, those games are growing. I mean, we at Complexity also just picked up, or not just, but about half a year ago, picked up a FIFA player. You know, and there's like so many still that are so talented, and they're actually treated as like a commodity by these classic organizations. You know, like Barcelona, Madrid, or whatever. They sort of like pick up their esports teams. I put that in quotation marks because they just hire like a FIFA player and that's it. But yeah, it'd be pretty cool. How do you feel about the Rainbow Six Siege scene? I know we've talked about this already. And I mean, your team's great, but to me, it feels like it's sort of like the next esport, but at the same time, it's also so slow. You know?
Yeah, I think it has a lot of potential. I think that there is a problem with like the round time. I think they're a little too long.
Yeah.
I have some worries about that game in the long term implementation of the pilot program, which I don't really want to get into right now. But essentially, like a thing like the pilot program it's really powerful, and economically, it can completely change the scene. So I just hope that Ubisoft is careful with the way that they kind of establish that program over longer term, because it can very easily create some unbelievably huge inequalities in the scene. So that's my only really worry about it. I think like competitively, Ubisoft has a good job of getting the game to like a much better place. Like that, no one watched that game 2 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So in that sense, they've done an unbelievable job, and I think they've done a very good job of attracting good organizations game, and part of that is because of the pilot program. So it goes against what I just said before. But overall, I mean, I think it's one to watch, and we're certainly not leaving it. Like, we easily could have left that game 4 or 5 times in the last year, but no interest really. I mean, it's just we really like our team, we really like the game. Like we actually love our team, and they're so level-headed. They're so good about improving the way they approach the game, the way they approach competitive play is so good, and like that's why I say like it's our goal to bring teams to NA, but like we're not gonna get rid of that team just to get an NA team. We love working with them, and they're
Right.
really great. But it is a focus, to bring rosters to NA. Just honestly, just out of convenience and logistics. Like I want to be able to film videos with them. I want to be able to do stuff with them every day.
Right.
Like I want to be a part of their gaming lives and like be able to just participate. And
No, of course.
can't do that when they're in Sweden.
Right. How involved are you in team and roster decisions? I mean, being the CEO, assuming you have
Um,
to put your seal of approval of on anything, but how involved are
yeah,
you
I
in
mean,
like?
I mean, obviously, I'm the one that signed at the end of the day. So if I don't want it, then it won't happen. But pretty much universally, as far as roster decisions, I basically just go with what Jared wants. I mean, he has a lot of competitive experience, and I truly believe like he understands our philosophy, and he also understands when a player is not going to believe in our philosophy. Like he's been a pro player in 2 games, like he knows what it takes how much you have to practice. Like
Mm-hmm.
he understands, and I almost just always will pretty much back him on whatever he wants to do. A lot of the times in like Dota and stuff, we go a lot more with the players and the coaches, and at the end of the day, obviously we have to approve of it, but your players are the ones that are guiding your decisions in those games, and then Jared is the one that looks at them and like occasionally shakes them and says, "Are you crazy?" Because obviously you have to do that sometimes. But in Dota, I would say I'm still like marginally involved just because like my network in Dota is super useful to getting players we want and like making sure we kind of like navigate the scene successfully. But in like Rainbow Six, Counter Strike, stuff like that, I pretty much just put Jared, and whatever he really wants is what we end up going with.
Makes sense. Like you said, he does have the experience.
Yeah, I mean it's like I hired him for a reason, right? Like
Yeah, it's true.
I always the thing about me and Jared is funny is like me and him probably getting the most arguments in our company, but it's so funny because he knows when I get an argument with him, I'm basically just like making him a point. Like you need to explain to me
Right.
why you think this, and then at the end I'm like, okay, that sounds good. And he's like, God, I fucking hate you, but I understand why you did that. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine, no problem. See you later, dude. But it's funny because like at the end of the day, I pretty much always agree with him once he's explained himself. He has a good base of knowledge to go from. So.
It's pretty cool that you guys have that dynamic, and I mean, I think for anybody, it's really important to have people or to surround yourself with people that you trust on a base level.
For sure, 100%. I mean, if you're hiring people to build to like work in I don't know. For me, I have like such a even though like my ownership percentage in this company isn't as like significant as a lot of owners. Like since I built this from like zero employees, like I set up the payroll for the company when I joined.
Right.
I feel like such a huge responsibility and like ownership of every single component now, especially since we did the review. So like getting people that I know that I can just completely trust and not have to like worry about all the time is so important. Like I think people underestimate how important hiring is, which is funny because it's obviously like the most important thing you can do in building a company. But like I still think people underrate it, and like I also think people like discount like their own gut. Like if you interview someone and you don't get a good feeling about them for whatever reason, in my experience, you're almost always right. Like just trust your gut. We have something I don't even know if I just publicized this. We have something we call the donkey test, which is basically like, if you talk to someone, and this is based off of, well, it's based off our own theory, but then we heard a podcast from like the WeWork CEO or something that basically agreed with us. And it's like, if you ask someone enough questions, if like they're not very knowledgeable about something, eventually they'll hee-haw and like you'll know. And it's like if that happens, like just move on. Like you don't want to hire someone like that.
No, that's true.
So it's kind of like a weird.
I'll steal. I think I'm stealing that donkey test.
Yeah, I don't know. We call it the donkey test. We refer to it all the time, but it's like, we really like hiring for me has been so important and like so instrumental. I think we've built an unbelievable team here. So it's in it, but it also makes hiring really stressful, right? Because you're just like, fuck, like I can't find someone that I like. Like we're not just gonna hire a random person.
Right.
I need to find someone I actually like. And it's not even, obviously sometimes it's not even like them. It's just which happens probably 95% of the time in job applications that you get is just they just don't have the right experience. And unfortunately for us, well, fortunately and unfortunately, it depends how you look at it, we don't really have the time. Excuse me, we don't really have the time for some of these positions, at least, to really like go the whole 9 yards and teach someone what can go into it and how they can excel at it if they have like no knowledge base. Even if we think they would be good at it in 6 months, we don't really have 6 months. It's like 6 months is a long fucking
In
time.
esports,
A lot of stuff in 6 months. So it's just hard. It's hard to strike the balance between like, because you always want people to have room to grow, right? Like you can, if people just join and they're like, this is where I'm at, you're gonna have some really unhappy employees.
No, for sure.
So they need to have room to grow. So you need to make sure that you kind of strike the balance between like, yeah, we need to teach this guy some stuff to kind of grow in the role, but also they need to be able to hit the ground running, basically. I guess is the easiest way to put it.
Well, no, absolutely right. When you built the company, did you ever consider, this is a bit of a stretch and more of a segue kind of question, really, but did you ever look back onto your like High Ground TV days and you've worked with so many people before. Did you ever look to rehire some people that you've already worked with?
Kind of. Sean, actually, our brand director, used to run the American Dove League, which was
True.
the league that me and Mott casted. Harf, our videographer, is someone that we actually contractor at DreamHack Austin. Like one of the very first times we ever made content as a videographer.
Oh.
So like we've definitely gone back and like we do actually kind of to a point try to trial people as contractors if we them in the longer term. So we kind of have some points. I haven't really gone back. Like a lot of the High Ground TV are kind of like otherwise occupied now. Like Dakota has a wife and kids and works at BTS. Mott has basically left Esports. Some of the sports staff I'm still in touch with, but a lot of them just don't operate quite as much in esports anymore. And like
Right.
the other thing is we don't really like those businesses were so different that a lot of the times the roles don't really like transfer over. And that's not to say that some of those people couldn't do jobs here, but everyone that we've ever hired has like applied basically, and even if I've encouraged them to apply and said I think you would be a good fit for this position, we've gotten everyone through that. So I guess kind of here and there, I definitely have relied extremely heavily on my network to hire these people. I think is like the real question you're getting at. Like a lot of our hiring has been based out of my that I know, trust, and think do a good job in other spaces. And like even we have a bunch of pretty high level jobs up right now that are director level, and people I've interviewed already and considered people that are again from my network. And it's kind of funny though because really like my job for like 2 years was just grow my network. So I have a pretty extensive esports network from sort of a little bit of everything, just from working at BTS, from working at Vulcan, very different types of people too.
Right.
So from being a Dota manager, for Archon.
You've done everything in this.
Yeah,
scene, right?
and well, that's the other thing too about this job. It kind of like it was funny. I wouldn't really have to get too much into it, but when originally I was just supposed to basically be like the chief sponsorship officer for DC. Like I was just supposed to make money, chief revenue officer, I think was the title.
Mm-hmm.
And through whatever it is, sponsorships, media rights, whatever, making revenue streams, because that's what I'm really good at in a lot of ways. And I think since I've taken this job, I've learned about a lot of other stuff. But basically, at the last minute, there was like, there was the old CEO didn't want to do the job anymore, and they'd already interviewed me for like days, and they called me up and they were basically like, the other CEO doesn't want to do this anymore, but like you've already done like all of these things, so like, do you want to do this job? It's just all of them together. And I was like, that's like a huge jump. This is a big step in responsibility and like money that I'm in charge of, stuff like that. So like, as long as you guys are willing to help me with like forecasting and budgeting and the sort of like spending money end of it, then yeah, sure, like I'm down, because it kind of is, it's like it's just an amalgamation of all the things I did in the past. So in that sense, it's been a great fit for me. I think without a doubt, this is the happiest like in an actual job. Like in my day-to-day roles and responsibilities, I've never been happier than this role. So
honestly, you seem extremely happy too. I've been watching your vlogs off and on, and you just seem to just love life, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, considering my last fucking year, man, I think I'm in pretty good spirits.
I think you deserve a little bit of leisurely life as well.
Yeah,
But
so
no,
it's funny. Like people are, a lot of people don't know my background, I guess, but like I spent a month in the hospital, and it was funny. Like that acquisition actually started when I was in the hospital,
right.
and like I took one of like the big phone calls of the whole acquisition from my fucking hospital. Like,
Holy shit.
yeah, like it was crazy, dude, and the getting through all of that and everything, and like our new backers are fucking amazing. Like I truly love our new investors and parent company. Like they 100% understand like what we want for the company, and the reason that they wanted to work with us is because they also like so deeply felt strongly about like the whole lifestyle aspects of the business, like getting beyond gaming, making new content that's not just gaming content. All of that they're so on board with. Um, so I feel so lucky that we like found a partner like that through that whole fucking shit show, and like yeah, I don't know. So at the end of it, I got out of the hospital, company got acquired, and I bought the fucking car I wanted since I was in like eighth grade.
Damn.
So
Damn.
it was just like there was so much stress in the last like year that was just like yeah, I don't know. It was like the little present to myself for not dying and getting through all that shit. Because honestly, my health stuff last fall bad. Like there was a night where I got like 6 units of blood, and like I like very easily something very bad. So consider myself very lucky to like
Oh
have made
shit.
it through the whole situation with really no like long-term repercussions, just a lot of scars.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you didn't die. Holy shit.
Yeah, me
Didn't know
too,
that.
dude.
All right. Damn.
Yeah, it was pretty serious. I had a surgery, and then I had like a long-term after, and got brought to the ICU, and I was in the ICU for almost 10 days the first time around. It was really bad. I ended up going back to the ICU at one point, but that wasn't for as long. So
But that's
it
all
was not.
settled, right? Because you've been on and off with a or you've been back and forth between hospital and home for a while now as well, too, right?
Yeah, sorry, it's getting really fucking hot. Just open this door a little bit. Basically, like I had like a huge issue last fall, a month, and then essentially they buttoned it up. I actually had a colostomy bag for 3 months, which is like when you have a bag in your front that
Right.
we don't need to go into it, but a
Yeah.
colostomy bag. It was not enjoyable, but it was because my intestines were just like not healing. Like my intestines actually blew up, and they fixed it, and then the part where they fixed it was not healing, and
Oh
so they
wow.
had to add that in. And obviously when that happens, I had like every under the sun, because like when that happens, your whole body just goes fucking crazy.
Well, of course.
And then eventually they fixed all that, put it in a colostomy bag, fixed it. Then I had to get the colostomy bag out. 3 months later, that was another hospital stay. I also ended up in the hospital on the weekend because you literally, you get like a blockage, and like your body just fucking shuts down when that happens, because that's not supposed to happen.
Right.
So I had to go to the hospital for that. And then 2 weeks ago, I had hernia surgery because my abdominal walls are just like Swiss cheese because I've done so many fucking surgeries. So I went to get one hernia fixed, and they found three like right in a row.
Holy shit.
So that's like the state of my body right now, and it's super fucking frustrating as well, right? Because I used to be way heavier. I lost like 145 pounds. I was in like the best shape of my life, and then this happened. It's just like, what the fuck? Like, so frustrating, man. Like, just unbelievable. So in the end, honestly, I'm extremely thankful that my long-term impact is eat more fiber. I have to watch my diet a little bit, and
Right.
if my stomach is really irritated, I need to go to the doctor sooner rather than later. But like beyond that, it's really not a huge deal long term. So myself super
How
lucky.
did you even manage to build a whole company around all of these issues? You know?
It wasn't easy, man. With a lot of good help, That's what all I can say. My friends have been different on another level through this whole thing. Everyone has been so supportive. Like my parents also like flew down here like every single fucking time they had to, and yeah, I don't know. It's not been easy, and I think it's just I've had good people around me to help me through it, and they've made it. They've made it. So all I've had to do is make decisions about stuff. Say yes or no, and it's really nice because like we've ended up in a point where the company is like still very much like my vision and what I wanted, even though all this shit has happened. It easily could have gotten fucked up. So I'm just very thankful that I've like have all these people around me that are so dedicated to the same thing.
I swear to God, people could write a book about your life. I mean, first of
Dude,
all,
there's a whole chapter in there we can't even talk about it. Trust me, it gets Woo.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, it's accurate.
your esports career, just your esports career has been like a whole roller coaster. Starting off like I don't even know where you started off, but just going
Ghost
back.
Gamers, baby.
That was
Well,
actually a start.
technically, G Dota or Ghost Gamers. G Dota with I don't even know, some Ukrainian tournament organizer, $500 Dota 2 tournament. That was where I started. YAEP Dota, and then very soon after though, I like was submitting the bots to Ghost Gamers, and they asked me to cast with Purge and Gods, and that was like me and Shiver actually started casting Dota the same.
At the same
Which
time,
like
yeah.
like literally the same week. So most people don't know that, but like so like me, Shiver, Purge, and Gods they're like my best friends in esports, So it's
And
kind
then
of
you work your
interesting.
way up. It's honestly, your
And here we are, baby.
whole career is
Fucking
so
how
impressive,
many
dude.
years later? 7.
Yeah, you could hire your own esports cast if you wanted to. That's where you at right
That's
now.
true. That's true. I could. So
Is, is,
I'm happy that I'm lucky.
is there any part of or any particular job that you kind of miss? I mean, I know you've been. I mean, you're technically in front of the camera again, but do you miss like commentating or being like on
I do
panel?
not miss commentating
Not at all.
at all. No, commentating personally, I think is a very overrated job. I mean, you're just like paid to get flamed by Reddit. Like I
Pretty
never
much.
even had like really bad flame threads on Reddit. But after I cast TI4, I was just like, fuck this, man. Like, I'm not gonna let my career reside on the public opinion of fucking Reddit users. Like, are you serious?
That's a good
So then
point.
as quickly as I could, basically, like that was kind of when I faded away from for like a year. I was in college. I was doing a full time internship at a like boutique mobile consulting firm, which honestly, like, best job I've ever had in my life. I learned so much about business and building a business and building growth strategies and even just shit like building decks and stuff. Like I learned so much that fucking job, more than I ever would have learned working in esports. And that's what I tell people too, is like to get an esports job, sometimes your best bet is to take a non-esports job first and gain some real skills.
No, for sure.
And that was what got me eventually like my sales job at BTS, where I had all this consulting experience and actually had like a body of work with decks and a network in esports, and it was like a good fit.
We'll never
I do
forget.
miss working at BTS, honestly. Like not everything, but I miss the content that
Right.
it felt very special.
Right.
Truly, like very, very special. And there's still no one that makes content like
Absolutely.
There's no one. So I do miss that.
We'll never forget the sponsorship that you brought on for. What was it? Smash Summit 4? No, was
Baby, dude, Smash Summit 3 Weed
it 3? Yeah.
That is the only poster that I have from BTS. Is I have the Smash Summit 3 like signed poster by all the players, powered by Weed Master. I have that.
I still don't know how you pulled it
one of my
off.
proudest achievements, dude. That deal could have gotten shut down by like 15 fucking people, and it didn't. I was so happy. And I bet like to date that is one of the largest Smash sponsorships financially. Like it was a good deal for both parties because they got so much publicity. But like that was for the time of Smash, that was like a holy shit sponsorship. And it was great for BTS though, because they were like, okay, this is a real game. We can run summits in this shit for a long time, and they have, and it's been amazing. And the stuff they've made has been unreal. So definitely one of my prouder sponsorships. I think it was a genuinely good activation too. Like
I agree.
perfect demographic fit, dude.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Smashers are fucking degens, way harder than any other. So that was truly like the perfect partnership.
But I assume, going forward, now that you have a sponsorship sales director, you won't be as involved in the whole sales side of things anymore.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'll still be involved, but
Oh.
I will not be the one actively shepherding the relationships, unfortunately. Both a blessing and a curse. I mean, the thing that sucks about sales is it's your job to get said no to. It's not really.
That's true.
It's funny because sales seems like a really glamorous, like fun job. It's not. You just cold email people all day and get said no to, and then like once every like 20 times you get like a good relationship. But like for me, the thing about sales was always be as transparent as you can, be as honest with you as you can, set the best expectations you can, and then just try to renew your clients as hard as you can. And like if you look at BTS, they still have basically all the same sponsorships from when I worked there. They still have Monster, they still have Sennheiser. Those are the really like two big lifebloods of that company, because like our strategy from the beginning with them was to grow with them, and like that Sennheiser account did not start as nearly as significant as when even I ended with. I can't imagine. I'm sure it's it's more significant now, but really working with high quality partners and making them want them to work in the long term was a super rewarding part of the job, and that's something I'll still get to do at Chaos now. So I'm still happy to be involved in that capacity.
I mean, the philosophies that you set out for sales, I mean, they apply pretty much well to life in general,
Yeah,
Trying to be,
universally. I mean, that's how I try
yeah.
to carry myself, but um, in esports, it's not as common as you would think, or as you would hope. I guess I don't know.
Unfortunately, yeah. Greg, it's been a lot of fun talking to you. We are past that hour mark, so this is pretty much where we're closing things out. I look very much forward to visiting you in Atlanta at some point because your place looks dope. Mostly I just want to visit because of the cars. I'll be honest.
Cars and food, dude. That's what everyone
Cars and
tells me.
food.
Like
That
when I
that
ride in
steak
your
that you
Lotus,
made.
you make
Whew,
me a cake. That's pretty much what everyone says.
that,
Which
that,
yeah, I pretty much can. If I know you and you come through, I'm pretty willing. So.
I will. Anything you wanna, maybe like a shout out? Anything you wanna mention at the end of this podcast?
Big things, honestly, just the Chaos YouTube channels, especially the Chaos Live channel. If you are interested in, I guess, like the ethos of that channel is like the life of what it's like to be a pro player and a pro team, and just sort of follow what we do in our day-to-day lives. Check that channel out. I think tomorrow we'll have the card. Well, I guess by the time this comes out, it'll already be out. There'll be a video about me going to a track day, so you can kind of get a feeling of like the channel is going in some capacity. I think we have a lot of the other thing is we have a lot of really cool announcements, which definitely can't talk about yet, but sort of relating to building a company and some of the opportunities we'll have in the future that hopefully kind of be announced in the next month and a half or month or so. But some really exciting stuff for us, and I think in 6 months, hopefully we'll look at this interview and say, wow, we did a lot of the things you set out for. So I think for us, the next 6 months are going to be really, really exciting, and especially I'm looking forward to 2020 and just seeing what the team of people that I've built kind of can do.
Well, I certainly hope that guys. I mean, I'm a big fan of you guys. Mostly, I actually really like your lifestyle channel. I don't know why.
It'll be
but
fun. I think it's gonna be really fun, dude. It's
I
like
hope
no
so.
bullshit. It's just like this is what we do in our lives. We have a weekly video on this. It's called This Week in Chaos, and it's literally just like it's supposed to basically be like The Office, but our office. It's just like fun stuff, just to like see what it's like to live in. So that's what we want people to do.
Well, and hopefully you guys keep on making dope merch. I love my hoodie.
That
so.
we will do. We actually have an even more
Oof.
exciting collaboration than that front on the long. That's on the longer term. 4 months at least. Sorry.
Anyway, again, thanks for joining me. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Less than 2 years.
Hopefully.